Hello and welcome to episode 189 of Just Keep Writing,
a podcast
for writers
by writers
to keep you writing.
I'm Shingai.
I'm Sameem.
I'm Brent.
I'm Jenna.
I'm Nick.
I'm Marshall.
And I'm LP.
And we are back with a very full house this week, and I am a little worried about what... No, I'm just kidding. LP is leading the show tonight, and I'm excited about it. But we also have another guest in our midst. RJ is back. Welcome back.
Hello. Thank you.
Woo!
Yay.
Always happy to have you on the show. Okay, LP, I'm throwing it over to you. Let us know what we're doing and let us know how we're doing it.
Well, this is another conversation about creative research. We haven't had a creative research episode in a bit now. And this is actually kind of like a getting to know all about you aspect. We're talking about on-ramps. And when I talk about on-ramps, I'm speaking of those like pivotal moments in our reading, our watching that got us writing. We're going to talk broadly. We're going to narrow down into speculative stuff. And then we're going to, kind of get into the nitty gritty of it. See where what we write overlaps with the things that kind of made us writers, right? So... with no further ado, I wanted to start with the first question, which is, what was the first piece of media that you saw yourself kind of like sit down and really take notice of? It could be a comic book, it could be a novel, it could be a TV show, it could be a movie. I'm going to start so I can give you all a second to think, right? My siblings are older than me. My next sibling is 6.5 years older than me. And then I have two who are 10 years older than me. And so when I was a kid, I didn't get to watch kid stuff because when we went to the movies, we weren't going to no damn kid movies. We was going to see some teenage things, right? So I grew up like in the horror movies and titty movies. So like it was Porky's, it was Revenge of the Nerds, it was Poltergeist, and it was Nightmare on Elm Street. I never really got into Friday the 13th like that. But like those are the ones that I watched, and like my father was known for watching horror movies through his fingers. And so then I learned to do the same thing. So that was those are some of the first ones that like got me, and I was like, oh Lord, this is crazy. Feel free to raise your hand so I can call on you. Ooh, Marshall.
I had a couple of ideas if this was going to be around what you were going to ask first, but I just surprised myself with what I really think I want to say, which is video games. For me, when I first got my first Nintendo, I had the gold edition of Legend of Zelda. I still have it in my attic. There was something about being able to actively move around the screen and go on little adventures and like stab little creatures and like solve puzzles and get the freaking Triforce and stuff. There was something about that game, and really just gaming in general that I mean, I still game. I'm 46 years old. I was playing video games last night till I fell asleep in my office chair. There's something about those worlds that I've always gone back to, and that medium I've always gone back to. I've only really taken very short breaks really from video games. So for me, it was noticeably The Legend of Zelda, but after that it was on. I mean, it was all about Street Fighter. I used to make, speaking of crossing over into writing, I used to actually, oh God, I shouldn't say this. I wanted to make my own video games so bad that I started making my own Street Fighter. And so I would draw the little characters. I would give them backstories. I'd give them moves. I would even give them the button presses. I'd write it all down. I had binders of this stuff. It was, probably shouldn't have admitted all that, but that was about as geeky as it got. And it was so much freaking fun. I loved it. So anyway.
Did you latch on to anime easily?
It depends. I was really into, well, I watched Dragon Ball Z a ton back in the day. And then I got into a bunch of other stuff, and I never really went back to anime. But my kids recently have gotten me into various anime. We watch all of Attack on Titan, and some other things. And I don't know. I love it. It's a very daunting thing to get into considering all the other things I'm supposed to be doing. So fair. I don't know. It's like, hey, this anime is really cool. There's 500 episodes. It's like, okay, I don't I don't know if I have time for that.
You should
Anyway.
go to my school of binge watching because I can get you there, bro. I only brought
Okay.
up anime because Kisho Tenketsu is like the way that all of those video games are written, and so like it
Mhm.
kind of like sneak taught a generation how to watch anime without like getting weird about like it not having the same focus on protagonists and stuff and
Right.
individualism. So yeah,
Oh, totally.
I will call. Thank you. Okay, Shingai, you're the first one I saw. Then Brent, then RJ.
So I grew up in a very Christian household. I'm just going to start there. And it was an African Christian household. So what I had access to in my formative years of like falling in love with reading and stories was a lot of Christian romance. Karen Kingsbury and Francine Prose was her name. And then my mom had like books that were illicit that I couldn't touch. And of course, when you tell an 11-year-old not to read this book, what do? They grab the book. I think I've told the story before to some of the homies, but like that book was 11 Minutes by Paulo Coelho. And I feel like it was the first time that I experienced butterflies in my belly. And yeah, so that was like some of my formative, like this got me into reading. And then when it came to like the Bible, which I read over and over again, Revelations was my favorite book. And that was the book about like, you know, curses and angels and demons and the last days and all of the magic. So that's a little bit of an unconventional answer, but that's something that I was thinking about.
The
Also,
rant.
Lord of the Rings.
Oh, what was Christian about that?
You just snuck Lord of the Rings in at the end there.
There was nothing Christian about that. That was just my pearls.
Okay, was I next? I can't remember.
Yes, you are.
Oh, okay, so the obvious answer is like X-Men, but I talk about that a lot. So I wanted to give an answer that's a little off the beaten path, like Shingai did. Books about different mythologies was my entry point. And I know that's not quite media, but in my head as a 5-6-year-old, it might as well have been. I didn't know the difference. So yeah, I was like, I don't know if I ever told this story before, but I was in the library so much in 5th grade, they made me an honorary librarian. And most of that was because like I was reading like these stories about like, you know, just mythologies and just like devouring stuff about like Ragnarok and then, you know, reading about like how your heart gets measured by Anubis, all these different things. I just devoured it. And it really just like, I don't know, it just really fired up my imagination. So yeah.
Oh, I can see cute little Brent in the library.
Oh yeah, I had to go pick up the books they would make me go from class to class, and if people had books they wanted to give me, they would give me the books, and I had this little cart, and I would push the cart around.
That's so cute.
Yeah. So, you know, yeah, the nerdiness never ever went away. It has always been deeply rooted.
Oh, I love it.
RJ?
That's awesome. I have like 3 answers because I had like one and then y'all were talking and I'm like, oh yeah, and that. The one I watched Who Framed Roger Rabbit when I was way too young to have watched that, and I freaking love that movie. And I think that burst through some creative imagination doors in my head. And then I, with video games, I was really, really into the Sierra point and click adventure games, which were narrative based. And like, I love those so much that I drew little maps of how I wanted to make my world if I were to ever make a video game like that. And then the answer I was first thought of was Patricia C. Reedy has a book called Dealing with Dragons, which I read when I was in, I don't know, 5th or 6th grade. And I became obsessed with it for some reason. It's kind of a twisted fairy tale kind of play on tropes and that sort of thing. And I read it like 24 times or something. They made you like track your reading for that grade. So I think that was the first one where I was like, yes, can't stop reading. So.
Dude, I haven't thought of those Sierra Quest games in so long. I just Googled it. I was trying to remember which ones I used to play. I used to play King's Quest.
Yes, King's Quest is fantastic.
Yeah.
And all of them. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
What's up, Jenna?
Well, I've had like a shit ton of things while everybody has been talking, but one that has stood out to me is, Brent, when you were talking about mythology, I checked out every book on ancient Egypt in the library of my elementary school, which I can't imagine was that many books, but as a child, it felt like a lot of books. And it reminded me that I was also obsessed with this Sesame Street movie that I vaguely remember and am attempting to Google right now and see if it exists, but where Big Bird had to like trade a feather to weigh against the soul of some, I think it was Egyptian dude, to like see if he could get into heaven or some concept of each. And
wasn't he dressed as a pharaoh at some point too?
Yeah,
I have memory of this.
Thank you. I don't think I'm making it up, but like I have this vision of like I was obsessed with like the journeys to the afterlife and Egyptian mythology, and then that this kid like needed to weigh his soul against a feather, and I was like, do you want your soul to be lighter than a feather? What does that mean for your soul? But like I was very invested in him getting to the afterlife, you know, and getting to and then I think about it now, I'm like, that was weird shit for a kid. Yeah, I think the other thing that like the other ways my brain was going were very horror, and I like maybe that's why I don't do it now, because I don't know, I watched Return to Oz way too many times as a kid, and only later was like, oh, that was fucked up because they were giving Dorothy electroshock therapy because they thought she was crazy, and that's what the movie was. So like also that I think is somewhere in my brain, and then Muppets, like Fraggle Rock, I think is very formative to my personality. and the Dark Crystal, which I remember seeing as a kid, and somebody asked me at school, like elementary school, have you seen an R-rated movie? And I was like, yeah, I've seen The Dark Crystal. So Muppets are also in there pretty heavily, and I don't know what that says about my writing other than joyfully weird.
You don't need to know yet. We're not there yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself.
You get ahead of yourself.
LP will tell you.
My dear, my Muzz and Morm, what are y'all? How are y'all feeling? Do you want to contribute?
I can. I watched too much TV growing up, and it was sort of like all over the place. A ton of like Saved by the Bell, a ton of like, you know, the afternoon, like, you know, Batman Beyond series, the like old X-Men series, like all this stuff. And that definitely had like an influence, but I don't think any of that was like, oh, I want to do this when I grow up. There was one really random show, I think called Mutant League, where I think the episodes I remember were hockey, but I think they did different sports, where it's like, basically they're like zombies who play these sports and they get all beaten up, and then they go into these like rejuvenation chambers afterwards. And there's all this politics of how like a sports league works going on in the background too. I don't know why.
There was a video game.
Yeah, so I think it stemmed from game. I think the video game was first, and then they tried the show. It was very bizarre. But I think the first like book that I remember really getting into was a series by Lloyd Alexander. It was like a middle grade fantasy series, very like definitely like Tolkien derivative. Called the first book was called The Book of Three. I can't remember what the whole series was about, and I only had like vague memories about it. But it was just this like high fantasy medieval tropey world and this adventure that this like nobody has to go on. And I found it in my basement when I like visited home a while back, before I moved back home. and picked up the first one and was really excited, and I was like, oh no, this is bad. But I think it was the first thing I read and first piece of media where I'm like, oh, I want to like develop this experience. And I don't know, I don't think I articulated it that way when I was a kid, but it made me want to know more. And I didn't go deeper at that point. I was much older when I got into books and was like, oh, did you guys know about these things? But I think that was like one of the things that made me really excited. And then there was also sort of like Shingai was saying, there's a lot of like religious mythology in the house, in terms of like stories from the Quran or different like stories about the prophet and his experiences and like the speed of light trip to like heaven that he took. And that definitely, both when I was a kid and when I was older, inspired a lot of like fantastical stories that are not yet out in the world, but are baking.
I'm pretty sure I had that series, dude. I still remember the covers of them. I don't know if I actually ever read them. I tried a couple of times, and I don't know if I ever read that series. I know
you
exactly
could probably
what you're
like
talking about.
imagine it, and it would pretty much be exactly what you expect.
I don't ever. It doesn't stick with me, so I don't think it was very good, like you said.
Can I add on that I found the Sesame Street movie?
Yes.
And it's called Don't Eat the Pictures.
Yes.
Because they are at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in the Egypt exhibit. And there's a prince there who has to remain on Earth until he answers the question, where does today meet yesterday?
I remember that.
And that's the part that probably had me obsessed with that movie.
We used to let children's show creators be on psychedelics, and it might have been a better time than we're in right now.
The good old days. Go ahead, RJ.
I know Nick hasn't said anything yet, but I thought of like 4 other things while we were talking. I just want to throw in there Highlander and Hercules and Xena. And then also choose your own adventure novels. I was obsessed with them. I remember when I changed schools, I was like not sure about this new school, but then I went to the library and they had a whole big rack of choose your own adventures, and I was like, that's cool. I'll fit in here. It'll be great. So.
Those books are the best.
If we're getting into high school territory, definitely, and I hate saying this because of what I know about the author now, but I think when I was in 9th grade, we were assigned Ender's Game on like a Friday, and by like Monday, at least every boy in the class had like finished it. For some reason, the girls weren't as into it.
Crazy,
maybe
right?
they had foresight. But I think that was definitely like, in terms of more like sci-fi-ish stuff, one of the first things I was like, oh shit, you can do this.
Yeah. Go ahead, Brent.
I think Shingai was first.
Just very quickly, since we were already in the religious territory, Prince of Egypt, y'all, genuinely one of the best soundtracks. I'm just gonna say it. And the music is so good in that movie. And it's a story about like resistance to some degree. And then books-wise, Agatha Christie was also really foundational for me. And it's something that I've realized because I've been in a season of watching mystery for some reason.
So as we were talking about like, I started remembering all these really obscure things that I like. And I was like, oh, this explains some things. So Biker Mice from Mars, like I liked that crazy show. I liked the show with the shark men that were like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles ripoff, but they were like the sharks. I liked that. I like the old Conan animated series. Like I was into that heavy. There was this one show called Exo Squad that had like this really not so great chattel slavery and allegory going on with the Neo Sapiens. So now that we're sitting here, I'm like, oh, this is why like my shit is always like a blender of ideas just thrown in there, and yeah. I know we're not there yet. Sorry, I just had to think about it.
And LP, you're muted if you're trying to say something. And Nick hasn't said a thing. He looks aghast. What's happening with your face, Nick?
Brent, for 30 years, I've been trying to figure out the name of this damn show.
The shark one?
Exo Squad.
I
Yeah.
sparked a memory, huh? That was a good ass show.
Yeah.
I had their toys growing up. I loved that show, and I could never find it.
You couldn't tell me those Neo Sapiens weren't black people. Like, that's all I just believe.
Seriously. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, and that part of this in the sci-fi space for me. I'm going to mention a book series that really pulled me in as a child. And you guys have mentioned a lot of the stuff that I would resonate with already and would have mentioned. So I'm going to pull in Hank the Cowdog. And that is a book series from like elementary school where I gravitated towards that for some reason because I wasn't quite at that range where I could read like the hard fantasy adventure books yet. Like I still couldn't get into that. But Hank the Cowdog was like that bridge for me that really helped me like learn like storytelling and adventure telling and like, the ups and downs of an adventure. And so that one always is always in the back of my mind.
I had to Google it. That's adorable. It's so cute looking.
I made LP disgusted, apparently.
LP, you're still muted.
You on mute, sir.
You're muted earlier, too. I tried to tell you.
Oh, missed it. Sorry. I'm not disgusted. There was a line I had to draw because of how much content I was consuming. There was a line I had to draw, like in like it was a qualitative thing. Qualitative makes it sound bad versus good. My nephew could tell the kinds of cartoons that I watched versus the kind of cartoons he watched, right? And so I think some of those I was like, okay. But also I'm older than most of you, so it makes sense that like there would be things that you would have watched that I wouldn't have watched. So me.
Oh, I just remembered Sliders. Yes. That was another show that was like probably one of the first sci-fi shows where I was like, yeah, I want to do this.
Yeah, besides like Star Trek
and Quantum Leap, Sliders more.
Awesome. I was obsessed with Quantum Leap, like obsessed. I have diary entries from when I was a child that were like, today I went to the playground. Today I watched Quantum Leap.
Scott Bakula.
Yeah, it was like Scott Bakula heart. Obsessed.
All right, if anyone doesn't want to throw anything else in, I'm going to move on to the next kind of question, but there's lots of overlap and that's okay. So that got me thinking about like, okay, cool, things that I was obsessed with as a kid. But then there were these things that I would watch and then I would project myself into them. I might be alone in this. And if I'm alone in this, we can skip this question and then just take it out of the thing and like go on to the next one. But there are shows that I put myself into because I was like, oh, what would my character do if I was in this? So this takes a turn because it's less speculative and more. I was on Kids Incorporated. I was on the Mickey Mouse Club. Like I was on there doing a 2-step with Jennifer Love Hewitt and Kenny Ford.
Of course you were.
Mr. Horn, like singing like kidified versions of like these hits. I think we're alone now. I was like, why are we alone? I don't know this band. This is awkward. But like singing, dancing, acting, that was like, it just made me so happy. The one I couldn't put myself into was a show called Roundhouse. It was on Nickelodeon. It was like a slightly kiddie version of In Living Color, but they sang and they danced. And it was like, it was ahead of its time. It was such a sad 4 seasons that it was over in 4 seasons. But can you think of anything that you consumed and you were like, that you started to put yourself into, or that you started to like rewrite? Maybe you didn't like the way that things were going and you're like, well, actually, when did you join the Well Actually Brigade? What happens before, AO3 comes around and fanfic takes over? Jenna?
I've got a quick one, which probably means I'll think of other things later.
Strong.
But my mom watched all of the mystery shows. So like the murder mystery, like Murder, She Wrote, I've seen all of the episodes, I'm relatively sure. Diagnosis Murder, which was one where Dick Van Dyke was a doctor and his son was a cop and they solved murders together. I'm not sure. There was of course then the court ones too that were like sort of about murder, like Columbo and Perry Mason, I don't know, all those things, all the murder shows, basically. And then I found the like big leather-bound complete Sherlock Holmes somewhere in the house and read them all. And then I was like, I can write better mysteries than these. Some of these are just like a dude talking for a long time and then being like, I solved it by talking through it. But basically, once you watch one murder show, once you watch it enough times, once you've seen all the episodes of Murder, She Wrote, like, then you're like, I can do this. And then combine that with the Sherlock Holmes. And in 5th grade, we have Jenna at a new school with very few friends, bored in Southern Indiana and hated it. And so I put a lot of my energy into writing a book and illustrating it myself that was called The Adventures of Sherlock Bones and Squatson. And they were both dogs. And Sherlock Bones was constantly distracted by bones, and Squatson peed on everything, but they solved the mysteries.
Can you do a reading of that at some point?
I gave it to my teacher. So somewhere out there is some teacher from the 1 year I spent at this school who has a copy of Sherlock Bones and Squatson, the only one in existence.
Oh, we can figure this out. What year? What school? We can track
Oh
this
my
book down.
God. Okay, I will have to think on this because I legit... Was it Newburgh Elementary? Sounds right.
Let's do some sleuthing offline.
Yeah.
Offline.
I was only there for 11 months. I hated Indiana. I'm sorry, Indiana. I hated my experience of living there in 5th grade.
No judgment, except for Indiana. Indiana gets judged. B?
So it's not so much, I guess, like inserting to change it. I was always just inserting to continue. Like I always felt like I just wanted to like continue the story or go places where I wish like the story didn't explore or whatever. And I think this also just now I'm like sitting here thinking I'm like this explains so much. So like we used to play Power Rangers all the time, and I was always the bad Power Ranger. So after the Green Ranger became good, we just had to make up another color. So I had to be what I can't even remember what color it was. It was the Purple Ranger or something, and it was just like so it was always just adding to, I guess, like the stories. It wasn't so much like, oh, that was wrong and that's not cool. Like it was more like, okay, that was fun, but what else can I add to it? Or like, if we would play the X-Men, I was always making up a new mutant with a different kind of power. Or if it was what else we used to play? Star Wars. You would make up a whole, since Vader died, you had to make up a new evil Jedi and all these things. So yeah, it was always more so for me. It was more about like I never really had the impression, I think, growing up when I was watching stories that like, oh, that story's wrong. I just would think like, okay, well, I want to keep playing in this world, so let me go make something else up.
That tracks. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
This question maybe didn't have as much steam for everyone else as it does. Oh, okay, Shingai. Maybe I'm speaking too fast.
Well, don't speak for me yet.
I wasn't trying to speak for you at all.
I feel like it's a big question too, because it's like, what helps you see yourself or something? There's something there about like, what you're projecting yourself into, but also what allows you to see yourself. And I think the first thing that came to mind for me was Home, that animated movie where Rihanna voiced the main character, and I Googled it and her name was Tip. And I remember that being like the first animated movie with like a black femme character that like had an afro and like was distinctly black in that way. And that felt really huge for me. But before that was Princess and the Frog, but she was a frog for half the movie. And then taking it back to like animated series in Kids Next Door, I really fucked with Number 5. That was a show that I loved a lot. Yeah, but those are the things that came up where I was like, oh, cool. There's a form of representation here, even though representation is limited. So,
Marshall, then Sameem.
So you can go first.
Oh, first you complain about not going first. Now you don't want to go first. Go ahead, Sameem.
Oh, stop it.
I think what Brent was saying was resonating with me, but I think it was often not me inserting myself and exploring a specific world or a specific character, but sort of like amalgamation of a bunch of different things. So I definitely I don't have a lot of memories of sort of the worlds I would play in, but definitely I remember during long drives, imagining what my superhero origin story would be, what was the industrial accident that caused me to get XYZ powers, and where did I go from there? But it was less about the story of what complications does that add to my life and stuff like that. It was more how does the world get set up, which kind of reminds me of my struggle with writing now, where I'm more gonna set up the world and the pieces and less worried about where the story goes.
Yeah, no, I think I keep, when you said what you said, LP, I thought immediately of You Can't Do That on Television. It was just a show I just really just wanted to be on. I don't know if anybody watched that on Nickelodeon, but I love that show. But I think what really kind of got my brain moving towards the writery side of possibilities when it came to storytelling was really when I fell in love with Star Trek Next Generation. I'd already watched Star Wars and all that kind of stuff, and I thought it was really cool. But I feel like the way Star Trek, specifically in the Next Generation, the way there was always so much world where they were. They'd show up on a planet to deal with a thing, but there was a whole culture. There was all this stuff going on, and I just felt like if I could be, plus I wanted to play on the holodeck, but if I could be part of that space somewhere, I just feel like there was always so many possibilities. I could feel like if I was on the Enterprise and they stopped off at the right world, I just may not get back on the ship. I'd be like, nah, I like these guys. I'm just going to chill here. You know what I mean? I don't know what it was. There was something about that. And I don't know. I feel like, and then I kind of felt the same with Deep Space Nine a little bit. And I liked that show mostly because there was a black lead. And that was kind of, I don't know, my idea of okay, well, I know the world was big and there was representation, but now there's a black dude running the whole station. And there was something about that I really loved. So there was something about that world that just felt infinite in some way, and I could just get lost there somewhere. I don't know. Not to be sappy.
I mean, look, Deep Space Nine is my Star Trek, unequivocally, and I've watched every episode of The Next Generation, right? I've watched all of Voyager. Did not watch the other thing. But Joy LaForge was black on the Enterprise, but his blackness never interacted with him being a person. And
and then Guinan kind of made me be a bartender, I feel like, but that was Guinan was interesting too.
Guinan also wasn't culturally black.
Yeah, exactly.
Not even human for that matter, right? Right. And so it was one of those things where you actually got to see somebody engage with black culture, black human culture, in a far-flung future. And it was also weird that his father ran a restaurant. But I'll stop there. This isn't my moment.
Anybody else?
Sure. I guess I'm the only one that didn't say anything. So I will say that mine's kind of like Sameem, that I didn't self-insert. I didn't work in a specific world, but I would set up these dramatic scenarios in my head, loosely inspired by Xena Warrior Princess, for instance. So it'd be a dramatic scenario happening kind of in that sort of vague, serial numbers filed off world.
I like it.
I like it a lot. There's a lot of stuff that resonated with in this one. Thank you for sharing, because it is very brave as adults to talk about the things we watched as children that probably aged like milk. Okay. So question number 3. So now I want to know where you were and what you were watching, what you were reading, what you were playing, what you're thinking about that made you think, you know what? Maybe I should take this writing thing seriously. Some of us it's going to be maybe I should take this writing thing seriously. Some of us it's going to be maybe I should try writing something. Jenna, I'm going to say for you, maybe I should take this writing thing seriously because you had the whole book and then you gave it away to some person you don't fucking remember. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I'd done some dramatic writing in college and like some ethnographic theater as well, and like I spent a long time songwriting in LA. That was my first act as a musician, but I'd started reading again. Like I was reading voraciously when I got to LA. I didn't have a place to live, and I didn't have money for entertainment, so I was buying books and I was reading books ridiculously fast. Then things slowed down because life and blah 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 blah. And so I started picking up the Percy Jackson series, the first quintology, because growing up I also really loved my Greek and Roman mythology. I read the second series, which was great as well. But I, off the strength of I have no idea what, picked up the 5th season, and I was like, "What? Wait, books can do this? I can feel this way." Like I'd cried, I'd read The Color Purple and cried in a window at Borders, but like I was like, oh, I know okay, all right, okay. So then I had to like look myself in the mirror and like really think about what was going on now because the 5th season did some things to me that I wasn't able to really qualify until later. But it got me thinking about like if books can do this, is this something that I can do? Who made you pick up a pen?
Go ahead,
Rant.
Okay, so there was 2 separate moments. So there was a moment in college where like I was writing and I've been doing like a ton of writing. But it was the believing in myself part that was not quite clicking, or the thinking there was actually space for me to do it. So I had a coworker. I'm in college, like I'm working a 3rd shift job, so like it gets boring. So you read a lot, and I had a coworker who knew I was, liked writing and was into science fiction and fantasy. So he gives me this book. It is Acacia by David Anthony Durham, and I read this, and I read it at first without knowing he was Black. And then it got confirmed for me later, like, oh, it's a Black man. I was like, wait. I was like, a Black man wrote this? I was like, we're doing that? Like that's happening? So when I read that book and I fell in love with that trilogy, I decided, okay, I'm not quitting. I want to do this. There is a possibility for this thing. So that was the first. And then life happened again a little bit, and that confidence kind of waned, and I wasn't taking it as seriously. And I picked up China Mayville's Perdido Street Station, and that one really sparked my imagination. But it was his second one, The Scar, in that those 3 books that like really made me be like, oh, so there is a space for like this batshit energy that I have like when I want to like make stories and tell these worlds. Because for those who haven't read that book, there's literally a sequence where there's a cactus humanoid who is on the same ship as a vampire, and they're all heading towards an alien ship crash site. That sounds like something a 6-year-old would like just throw together. But somehow that story made it work. And I was like, you can do that. It's possible to do that. So those 2 moments, the first one kind of affirmed that, I had that space as a Black man to create. And the second one kind of affirmed to me that like, okay, you don't have to follow norms. You can be as crazy as you want and still tell a good story. So those are my like 2 moments, I guess.
Jenna, don't you know David Anthony Durham?
Yeah, we worked together at University of Nevada in Reno, and used to hang out. I haven't seen him for a few years though now.
Well, now I'm fangirling over here because that those 3 books mean like so much to me as a writer, just because like I don't think there's any fantasy trilogy that has ever gave such a scathing critique of how chattel slavery destroys everyone. And I've never seen anyone in fantasy really delve with that till this day. And that book came out almost like 12 years ago.
Yeah, people do not talk about those books enough. Like,
No.
they're so good.
Also, the character of Corinne, one of the most tragic antagonists that I have ever read in fantasy. So, yeah, I endorse those books as often as I can.
Is it on record that that's like a fix it Jesus of like Game of Thrones, like those are the Stark kids, or not?
To me, it feels like actually it's more an examination of the Chronicles of Narnia in terms of like you have like those four kids who like that, you know, it really, to me, it examines a lot of things. It examines like chattel slavery. It examines the privileges of growing up in, you know, in being the beneficiary of this. It also examines like drug trade. It examines like how economics almost has as much to do with all these awful things as any one person's willpower. It's an excellent series. I can't endorse it enough.
You got me to read it too. Yes. Marshall?
Okay. I've told the story on the show before where I kind of fell in love with trying to make my own stories. I told my little geeky video game thing earlier, but I think what reignited my kind of desire to write my own stuff was reading more, sure, but like, again, I hate to do this, but when video games got really cinematic and I got to make decisions, I really figured out I really wanted to write those stories, but also wanted to write my own stories. So what I mean is like games like Knights of the Old Republic and Baldur's Gate and Mass Effect and stuff like that, where you got to create a person, but then make decisions and change the world around you. Fable was another one, right? Like some of these games that like I fell in love with, I'm like, man, I would love to go into this industry, but also like, how can I write stories that with these engaging characters that have meaningful decisions to make, right? And to me, like that was kind of my big thing. Is sure, like I loved shooters. I played Halo. One of the things I loved about that series though was the story. Like I got to follow along with this really well crafted, really cinematic story, right? And so I found myself really inspired to keep writing my own stuff when I got to do something really unexpected or badass in a video game, or had to decide whether one of my companions lived or died, right? Like having those emotions along with it was really something that shaped kind of how I look at storytelling a bit. And again, I keep going back to video games, but you know, there's a reason for that. So that's I'm gonna go with that. LP doesn't like my answer, but I'm gonna go with that.
Don't think I'm judging you. Like
I'm just kidding.
You're gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. It's all right if I don't like you. We just work together. RJ?
I have kind of two answers. One is like I forgot to mention Terry Pratchett, who was like my gateway drug to all things fantasy, and I don't aspire to write in his style or anything, but like he fills my heart with happiness. So inspirational in that way. And then less a book and more an experience of having to write a story in like whatever, 4th grade or something like that. And I wrote one called Humans Can't Live With Them, ... And it is like such an RJ story. It like has all of the elements. It's about a like tiger in a zoo, and some like kids break in and like harass the tiger, and the tiger like kills the kids in self-defense. I was a messed up kid. And then the tiger, it's from the tiger's point of view. And the tiger was like, just sits there waiting to be euthanized in the morning. And my teacher loved it. It was like, this is great. And I don't know. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I can write stories.
You know what? Having read your work, RJ, checks out.
It's such an RJ story, right?
Yep, checks out.
Sorry, something's going on outside. Go ahead, Sameem.
Wait, what was the question exactly again? I want to make sure I answer it right. It's been a
Something
while.
that made you pick up your pen and want to write your own
Oh,
work.
okay. Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think I've gone through lots of phases of this throughout life in different ways. I think we've talked a little bit about how, like, when I was like, adolescent, I did a lot of like songwriting. And so a lot of it was like, hearing different types of music and wanting to like put together something myself, even though I had no musical abilities. But I think like the more recent phase, I think like reading Octavia Butler's work, and there's like a long gap because I think I read Kindred like 10, 15 years ago. And then had like a long gap where I didn't read much or write much. And then rediscovered her with Parable of the Sower. And I think despite the gap after those two, I was sort of like, there's important work that I could do with this. And like understanding the work that she did with her art and her imagination, and all at the same time like talking about very important things, whether that was just her exploring what was important to her, or whether it was like important stories to put out there, or whether it was just like she just wanted to be weird and write stuff, like all checking like all those boxes, and making me realize like, oh, you can do all those things at once. I think that was like really inspirational for writing in general. And then I think like short stories, I never really wanted to write short stories. And then went to a con for the first time, heard about LeVar Burton reads, then started like reading or listening to a lot more contemporary work. And I think they're like Ken Liu's Paper Menagerie, when that, like, I was driving the first time I listened to that and like was like crying by the end. I almost pulled over the car. And I think I was like, oh, I want to make people do that. I don't know how. I don't want to do it this way, but I want to make people feel that way. So those are some examples.
Gina.
Yeah. It's interesting the move from like the crying to I want to make people feel that way, because I think for me, I for a long time just didn't think that I could do it. I like that it was just a blocked off thing. You know, I loved reading. I read so many books. I loved novels that made me weep at the end. But I never thought I could do that. And I've been trying to think about like what was it that made me take writing seriously, and I think it was a combination. Well, it was context first, because there was something about, and it's maybe cliche, but there's something about the Trump election that made me think like we need better stories. Like this isn't a problem of logic. This is because clearly that doesn't matter. This is a problem of stories. And then I also needed to write them for myself, because I was like, it could be really easy to just I don't know. I think I wrote in my journal one day, like when I try to imagine the future, I just see like a black hole. And I remember being on an airplane and thinking like, I want to try to write stories. And I think it was to try to make sure that I didn't end up having a like black hole future in front of me, but trying to put something else out there or stretch my imagination. But then the thing that made me actually do it, and yeah, I think Sameem, was it you said that like you didn't plan to write short stories? Yeah, I was a doorstopper girly. Like, give me the longest book possible. I want to get lost in it forever. And I didn't really read short stories, but there was a academic journal that put out a call for short stories, speculative fiction stories based on your research that like work towards liberation. So like use your research to imagine liberation through speculative fiction. And with that invitation, I was like, I'm going to try this, because this is all I read. I read speculative fiction And like I read a lot of other people's writing and I do research and I think I could do this. So I think I needed the like explicit invitation to try. And that like there was a space for it. And that was the first story I ever wrote. So I wrote I like came in at 5,000 words because there was a 5,000 word limit story. Trying to like imagine what would it look like to overthrow like neo-colonial aid domination sort of structures in African contexts. So yeah.
Shingai.
Yeah, both Sameem's and Jenna's answers sparked something for me. I remembered that my thesis in college was a play about Kenyan women freedom fighters. And it was a history that I became really obsessed with, especially during my last few years of college, because I had never seen these stories anywhere. And when I started reading them, they changed the way that I saw myself. And I was like, that is really powerful work. So even like what Jenna said about how the political situation is a crisis of stories, is a crisis of imagination. I think, yeah, because of the context that I was in, having access to these stories changed a lot for me about how I've moved in the world since. And I wanted to be able to do that with my work for other people, and especially for other Black femmes. And then that changed to other queer people, and then that expanded to folks on the margins, and on it goes.
While listening to y'all, it just made me remember that I also really fucking love the Pirates of Darkwater. Just put that out there.
Oh my God, the Pirates of Darkwater. Oh my God. I forgot about that. Wow.
If you don't know, just find them on YouTube, because it's one of it was one of those gateway cartoons where I was like,
I remember.
I didn't know cartoons. Oh, okay. Let's go find more of this. Okay. Anyone else want to contribute to that one? What made you pick up a pen?
Nick, you got anything?
Yeah, mine's kind of two-part though, because I felt like in the very first time you asked this question, you also said what made you take it serious. So I had an answer prepared for that. But so for me, growing up, I could never turn off the adventure in my head of always wanted to be in a different world. And I think that stems from like childhood trauma and stuff like that. Because I always never wanted to be home. I always wanted to be somewhere else. And I think, and that's why I did start reading is escapism and things like that. So yeah, that's not being able to stop, not think about another world really got me into it. But like the event to make it, the event that made me take writing seriously, a little morbid, having cancer and realizing I was wasting time with other stuff. And if I had a passion or something, I needed to chase it.
Well, that's a great way to bring it down before we close out. I love this. No, I'm joking, baby. I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad we have your fiction. Yeah, so I love this. This is a cool way to spend some time with some co-hosts and our guest RJ today. We talk a lot about lore in context of like books and TV shows and comic books and video games, but like this is the lore of the people that we make a podcast with. These are the things that kind of got us on the road to making things in the first place. So I want y'all to think about what got you on the road to making things, whether it was world building because you love D&D, or video games that you loved, or maybe you were deep in them mythology trenches. Did you get annoyed with Greek and Roman mythology, so you had to turn to Norse mythology, but there just weren't as many books? That's what happened to me. Think about the things that got you on the road. Think about where you started, because that could be potentially it could lead to some cool ideas about where it is that you're going. So whatever you do, when you hit stop on this podcast, because you don't want it to roll into the next podcast, because who knows what's going to happen next. who knows what's coming up in your queue. Make sure you turn this off, you pick up your pen and just keep writing.
And this has been Just Keep Writing, a podcast for writers, by writers, to keep you writing. You can find us at justkeepwriting.org. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Feel free to reach out to any of us on our social medias, and please jump in our Just Keep Writing Discord channel. Links to all of that is in the show notes. Lastly, please support our show by going to patreon.com/justkeepwriting. We offer daily writing prompts, early access to podcast episodes, and much more. Thanks for listening, and just keep writing.